Good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock Saturday, June the 23rd. I'm Leon Davis, and this is Altitude Adjustment. This week, I've noticed in my newsfeed, started maybe 3, 4 days ago, I started getting these really kind of salacious or emotional posts from friends. Not that hasn't been occurring normally, but it just seems to escalate. And I started hearing from people who I hadn't heard from in a while. And I don't know why that was, but the last time that this occurred to me, where I started getting these really salacious, really emotional messages, or really messages that just would cause normal people to, get excited or have the conversation become, about a shouting match, was in 2016. And we got Donald Trump out of that. So I'm saying, buckle your seatbelts. This ride is about to get a lot bumpier.
Welcome to Altitude Adjustment.
Alrighty, well, thank you for joining me this afternoon. Pardon me. I do want to mention that after the June 30th episode next week, I will not produce another podcast until August the 18th. So, alrighty. Well, things have locked up on me. That's a good one. There we go. Anyway, June the 18th. So, a couple of weeks ago, things have, since this presidency started, there has been this push towards sensationalism, I guess. Everything is over the top and just a kind of coarseness in the discussion. And a couple of weeks ago, it was the Roseanne and Samantha Bee, and then this week it was the First Lady and Corey Lewandowski, along with, of course, the immigration policy that was enacted. And through the course of all of this, what I have missed personally is now I know our elected officials go to work some days, probably not as many as the rest of society, but they do go to work some days, and I'm not hearing about work that they're doing. And one of the things that I've learned, especially watching children, I have done that from time to time, is that the time to worry about them is not when you can hear them, it's when you can't hear them. And right now, they seem to be doing whatever they're doing without a spotlight on them. I don't know if you have seen that or been aware of it, but I have not seen very much in the way of bills that they're trying to pass or legislation that they brought to the floor or discussions that they've had, other than a few minor things. And it may just be what I'm listening to. It may just be I'm getting all of the noise. I don't watch television. I do search a lot of news sites. And of course, everyone's trying to pay the bills. So they're going to put on what they think sells, and controversy and conflict seems to sell in our society. I don't say seems to, it sells in our society. That's what it does. We are a tabloid society. That doesn't mean that everyone is a tabloid consumer. It just means that the overwhelming majority of consumption is about tabloid stuff, conflicts, and things of that nature, which is pretty much how we've operated our society. There's um, um, Republican versus Democrat, conservative versus liberal, um, men uh, men versus women, women's issues, and everything's either or. And so we that sells. That is how we tend to do our society. I tend to like, or I tend to want to know some of the other stuff. I'm not. I don't really care about um, what is that singing thing where they have four judges and they sit in the chair and they hit the button and turn around and whatever. And there are more people that understand how that works than how our government works. But anyway, so prior to this current administration, well, let me get back. Let me talk about and this is difficult because I wanted to talk about the First Lady's coat, and not from the aspect of a salacious topic, but how do you, in a situation as serious as people being separated from their children, let's assume that all of the news stories are correct, that these children were being separated from their parents, and there was a this outrage, and you got crying children, and so the situation seems dire, or at least there are quite a few people that are exceptionally concerned about it. And so you're going to go and make an appearance, and she's been in the spotlight. She understands optics. Optics is how she made her living. So she understands the camera. She understands subtle images in focus. And she goes to one of these child camps in a jacket with a message that you wouldn't wear to a friend's birthday party. It's not something that you would do unless you wanted to piss off your host and other people in the party. So my question then becomes, if you understand that it's going to cause a controversy, and this administration has been one controversy after another, eventually it has to get through people's heads, even his heads as thick as mine, that there is something else happening. There is something. So we've got a Congress that's basically shedding the spotlight for a president who is creating cover. Probably that's not fair. I don't know what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish. So when I say create cover, I'm making an assumption of facts not in evidence. But so all of this controversy is going on, and it's not just one-sided. It's on both sides, which concerns me. Earlier in the week, there was a Corey, I think it was a congressman, was talking, and Corey Lewandowski was on the show, and Corey Lewandowski goes, "Wop, wop." And the person that they were talking to just lost it, just completely came unhinged and was yelling and, was incredulous, just animated beyond reason. And so when all of these people were leaving the White House earlier in the year, and there were a lot of people, that would come and they would go, that did not make sense to me. So I don't know what Trump's business dealings was like from that standpoint, from a personnel standpoint. What did he go through people that quickly and that easily. But there's been no one who's reported on anything that I heard that said he did. So if he did not do that in his normal business, or if at least that wasn't so noticeable that it was reported on, what then changed that he goes through so many people? So now you've got these people, and they're no longer in the White House. They're no longer, but they're out there. They seem to still be propping up the administration. So Chris Cuomo had Corey Lewandowski on, and he was asking, and a lot of times when I see the questioning, they're asking these surrogates or people that loosely represent the president or the administration, and they ask them questions as if they understand the mindset or understand what the administration is attempting to accomplish. And so when all of these people were originally coming and going, that concerned me. That just, it seemed unnatural. And I thought to myself, they're going to resurface. There is something about this where these people are going to resurface, and they did. And they all seem to be in lockstep. They all do the same thing. And I mentioned it on one of my previous podcasts that a lot of these surrogates were saying things to create an emotional environment, to create outrage, to create conflict when they expressed ideas. And so I don't know why, of course. I don't have the in on that. But it does seem to me to be suspicious. Now, I have mentioned previously that a good dose of skepticism is important. I try not to be a full-blown conspiracy theorist, in that I know something's going on, but it does cause me to question. It does cause me to ask questions. And of course, so I get on some of the people who send me messages on Facebook. I get on them about not jumping to conclusions. And so I'm going to try not to jump to a conclusion, but I am going to at least question what could possibly be the source of this behavior. So one of the things that supposedly Trump was not is politically correct. And granted, he has lived up to that moniker. He is not, or has not been, politically correct. And but that lack of political correctness, or that lack of now they call it political correctness. I call it a higher social behavior, just to give it some kind of label. I think when we talk to each other, political correctness is just an attempt to have a conversation that does not devolve into name calling and fisticuffs. That it is no more than that. And so there are people who don't like that. They want to be able to call you an asshole, or name call in a conversation, regardless of whether it's in the halls of Congress or in a local diner. They think it's acceptable for us to be coarse in our conversation. And one of the things, the reason polite society exists is that people realize that my being abusive or abrasive to you is not going to make the situation any better. It's not going to resolve anything, because everyone will then go to their corners, and it will become more about defending my position or defending my honor rather than about reaching some level of compromise to resolve a problem. So that's where polite conversation becomes important. And we've eschewed that for, I don't even know what to call it, because they're in most of the conversations that I've heard, or most of the times that they've talked to representatives or speaking out for the administration, they're not trying to accomplish anything. They're not trying to get anything done. They're just obfuscating. They're making comments that are going to create drama and conflict without some kind of result. So I watched 20 minutes of Corey Lewandowski and Chris Cuomo talking, and Chris is trying to get him to move to a position of how do we solve a problem? And he never got there. He did every trick that he could, everything that he could to avoid giving any answers he could be held accountable for. And I noticed that from surrogate to surrogate. They never commit to anything. They never commit to any idea. They never commit to any solution. It is all smoke and mirrors. It's just, let's create conflict and do that. So with that being the case, of course, I'm going to be a little suspicious. So I would hope that, and which is one of the reasons I said I'm going to buckle my safety belts, because this ride is going to get bumpy. There has to be a reason for that. There has to be an outcome that is expected. Now, I realize that Trump did not in the implementation of this new policy of term slips my mind real quick, but hardline policy on the immigration. They didn't create any. They didn't do anything to prepare. Now, I believe Trump is a cowboy manager. That means he does work on emotions and instincts, and may eschew some of the legwork of or some of the work of creating plans and doing alternate plans and what if scenarios. But at some point in every business, even the people around him, someone wants to do something in a rational, logical way. So we're getting this image, or getting this idea, that the president is completely calling the shots, and he's just doing it all by instinct, and there's no planning, there's no idea of just, he has an idea of where he wants to go, and then he just starts to move in a direction. Why pick the plan that they had to try to deal with immigration, like separating children and stuff? Why do that? And knowing that even if you believed that it was going to go well, even if you believe that it was going to go well, part of basic business is, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So you at least have some idea of what your fallback is. If you listen to the way Trump talks, he talks in this is what I think is going to happen, and maybe it will and maybe it won't. And that's the beginning of a fallback plan. The mere fact that I believe that there's a possibility that it will not occur or will not unfold the way I intended means that I've thought about that. So why wasn't there a fallback plan? Was the way things happened intended to happen that way? A good dose of skepticism. It's just too much drama and not enough asses and elbows. One of the things that I've learned a long time ago is you gotta get in there and you gotta work. You gotta put some sweat equity into it, and that means, if you are a planner, that means coming up with a plan, coming up with an alternate plan, coming up with a being able to explain to some level of intelligence what you're trying to accomplish. One of the key components of implementing any successful plan is communication. It is the first rule of getting things done. If you do not explain to the people that need to get the work done what you're trying to get done, you cannot get there. They have to know what you're trying to accomplish, how you're trying to get there, and what their part in getting it done is. That didn't show up here. None of that showed up, or it wasn't completely visible, which also leads me to question. There's been no real explanation. They just do stuff and then try to justify it. They don't try to build consensus. They don't try to warn people that it's coming. Part of stemming blowback is you give people an idea it's coming. And I don't mean in a campaign rally. I mean past administrations have floated ideas in the press. And you can see it because it gets leaked out, or it gets talked about, or it says, the president's considering. And then they may read the tea leaves, the response, the message boards, so that they get an understanding of how the idea is going to play out in public. Now, does that mean it always does? Well, of course not, because they're using a small sample. And then a lot of times people don't even want to get involved until you actually start to do something. And then, well, of course, all hell breaks loose. Then all the naysayers and all of the difficult people are going to come forward. So this administration has not worked in what even a simple plan would be. And that is just let people know, I'm getting ready to do this. This is going to happen. It's just the way they do it is it shows up. And then they do a lot of things that exacerbate the situation, which causes people to become more emotional. And so I'm concerned knowing that this is going to fail. Anytime you spring something on someone, they're going to reject it first. A lot of times people don't make change easily. They don't accept change the first time you give it to them. You're going to have to give them some explanation of why I have to change. Why do I have to do it differently? If you're accustomed to having your mail delivered in your mailbox, and then 2 days in a row the mail winds up on your steps, even though it's easier for you to get to it from your steps, most people are going to go and they're going to go, why are you doing this? They're going to reject it first. So understanding that, I cannot believe that all of these people in administration do not understand that basic fact of human behavior. That if you do something without warning folks, they're going to reject it first. So that leads me to believe that there's something else. I don't want to make it a full-blown theory that that's exactly what they're doing. I'm just saying, understanding these facts, it causes me to be concerned that they're not attempting to work with people. They're not attempting to make things happen. They're attempting to create controversy. And if you're attempting to create controversy, the question then becomes, why? I'm going to cut it a little short today. I am actually getting a summer break fever. As I mentioned, I will be taking next week will be the last podcast until August the 18th. Do me a favor, whenever you get a chance, make sure you drop me a note and let me know how you enjoy the podcast. Make any comments that are necessary. With that, I'm going to close everything. I want to thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. And you can replay the video portion of this podcast on YouTube. All you have to do is look for, do a search on Lansden STL. The audio portion of the podcast is on podcast.com, stitcher.com, the iTunes Store, and the Google Music Play Store. Now, the internet is powered by your likes, shares, and comments, so please like, share, and comment on this episode wherever you find it, because it does matter. As always, I implore you to be cool, be calm, and above all, be careful. Look out for the other guy, because they may not be looking out for you.